All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome. All right, so this lesson is one of the harder lessons we've ever done so far this year in Algebra 1. I would say this is the second hardest lesson we'll have to do. The first one will be, I think, around lesson 9.6 when we do the quadratic formula. So this is lesson 9.4, it's factoring equations. A lot of complicated stuff in here. I'm not going to have as many breaks because if I do, this video will take about 40 minutes. So if you're struggling with any of this stuff, okay, if you're struggling with any of this stuff, please remember to come see me, okay, or when we work on in class over the next couple days, we're going to do a lot of review stuff, making sure you guys can factor, move stuff around, look for common patterns, and go from there. All right, so factoring in the lessons. Big thing that we're going to talk about is square root method, zero product property, and then factoring completely. All right, first and foremost, a couple things. If you don't have the notes, I haven't uploaded them to Canvas yet. I apologize for that, but most of you have these now in class. Big key factor is if you see an x squared and an n, you can take the square root of both sides to get the answer. Because what we're shooting for is, remember, these are all quadrilaterals. Okay, so they'll look like this, all right, where we're trying to find the x points, all right, the solutions. And when we look for the solutions, that's the big key term for you, okay, is that we're trying to find where the line would cross the x coordinate. And that's what we're doing for a majority of this lesson. Okay, so first and foremost, you take square root of this and square root of this side. If this, basically, what's the square root of x squared? Well, it's x, okay? So the same philosophy applies here, where it'd be x minus 7. But here's the kicker. We are looking for how many points? 2 points. And so this side of the equation needs to be a plus or minus square root of 36. So what this means is you split it in two, and you would get x minus 7 equals 6, because that's the plus, and then it's x minus 7 equals negative 6, because that's the negative square root of 6. Then you would simply solve it, okay? And when you solve it, it's going to be plus 7 to this side, and there, plus 7 to here, and to here. And you do your math. X equals 13, x equals 1. So if I were to do this graph, my graph would not look like this. It would actually look where it would come up on 1 and come down probably way over on 13. Okay, so that's how that one in blue would be. This one right here, same thing. Square root and square root. Okay, when you're doing this, this turns into x plus 9 equals the square root plus or minus of 8. Right? So when you set this up now, you would have x plus 9 equals the square root of 8, and then x plus 9 equals negative square root of 8. So here's the key factor. When you guys are doing this, is this going to be a real number? The answer is no, it's not, okay? Because when you subtract 9 from both sides, you're going to have x equals whatever this is. And then this is subtracting 9 from both sides. Simple problem like this. So on your calculator, okay, you would go square root of 8, and it's minus 9. I set that up. And my answer is going to be, and it's an approximation, so it's a little squiggly line like this, negative 6.17. Usually you want to go to the hundredths on these. And then so I got a negative square root of 8, and then minus 9 again. And x also is approximately negative 11.83. Right, so there's my answers. All right, I found those by using a calculator and just doing the simple math. All right, I'm going to step away real quick. Solve these up if you can. Okay, if you can't, I'll come back in a second. All right, so hopefully you pause it real quick. Square root, square root. This would be x plus 6 equals 9. And then it's going to be x plus 6 equals negative 9. And then you do your math. Minus 6, x is 3. Minus 6, x is also 15, negative. Okay, so there are your two answers on that one. This one here, add 3 to both sides. Okay, and then it would be a minus 8, because I'm just taking the square root of 13, and then it's a minus 8 equals negative square root of 13. Add 8, add 8. Same over here. Okay, and so I know I get, make sure I'm doing my math right because I'm going pretty quick. Square root of 13, and that's going to be plus 8 this is going to be a equals 11.61, and then it would be square root of 13, negative, and then it's plus 8 again, and it's going to be 4.39. All right, and that's approximately. Okay, so there are my two values. All right, so hopefully you guys understand how to set up on these. The next one here, you would divide by 4. Okay, and then if you do that, you're left with m plus 1, so these cancel out. So it's going to be m plus 1, and then this is 36 divided by 4 is 9. So it's going to be square root plus or minus of 9. Split it up. M plus 1 equals 3. And then m plus 1 equals negative 3. So your answer here, subtract 1, is going to be 2 and negative 4. All right, hopefully you guys can see the math. If you don't know how I got that, please come see me. Like I said, moving pretty quick. If you need to back it up a couple seconds, please do as well. Formula here we had talked about. Here's your formula. Okay? Talking about dropping a ball from 205 feet. The formula is going to be set up as TH like this, plus H of 0, which is the initial height of 205. But when you're dropping a ball, okay, you actually wouldn't drop it. If you drop it, like we had talked about on our Angry Birds project, okay, when you're throwing a ball, the release point, how many seconds have I thrown it? Nothing. If I'm dropping a ball at 205 feet, you're counting the seconds of when it drops. But if you don't let go yet, you're still at 0. So this equation needs to be set to 0. Then you solve for both sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over to here. Okay, and it's going to be plus 16t squared. All right, when I do that, it's going to be t squared equals 205. And then you can take the square root of both sides. So if I do that, square root, it's going to be 4t equals the square root of 205. Right, remember it's plus or minus. Divide by 4, and then you divide by 4. But in reality, one thing you guys got to remember is this is time. So I want to know how many seconds. So in reality, we're not going to be dealing with a plus or minus. We'd only be dealing with the reality of plus. So when I go into my calculator here, I go the square root of 204, and I divide that by 4, and my answer comes out to be approximately 3.57, and this would be seconds. All right, next one on the guided practice. I'm going to skip this one. It's basically the same formula. It's 0 equals negative 16 th squared plus 102.5. Okay, when you set this up, do the same thing we did on the last one if you want to try it out. You'll get an answer. It would be, the answer would actually be the square root of 102.5 divided by 4. Okay, you put that in your calculator, and that's what your answer will be. All right, so now we're talking about, and this was wrong. It's not the square root property. It's actually the, hold on, let me get the right terminology. It is the zero product property. So when I copied the notes over, the book had a little bit of a mistake. Zero product property basically states, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking for zeros. We're looking for things that can factor into 0 as well. And it's not going to be just one, but the product of 2 factors. Because remember, usually there are 2 lines. Okay, so how you do this is as simple as setup. What you would want to do is this times this is going to equal 0. So you want to get this little grouping to 0. So it would be 2d plus 6 equals 0. And then 3d minus 15 equals 0. All right? So what 2 numbers, so if you guys are looking at this, what number can go into this equation to make this whole side 0? Well, if you put in a negative 3, it would actually be what? 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, okay? And then negative 6 plus 6 is what? 0. So my first number is negative 3. And my second number here would be 5, okay? Simple setup. This one, You got to do a little bit of manipulation. You got to move some things around. Get things on the same side. Okay? 0. And then can you factor anything out of this? You can. They share a c. Okay? And now the question becomes what? What can you rip out of there? Now, you've ripped everything out. Can you do anything else? No. So what numbers would get this to 0? Well, if you put a 0 here, guess what? This whole thing is 0. And if you put a 10, 10 minus 10 is what? It is in fact 0. Try that one, please. All right, this one's pretty simple and straightforward. This would be a what? That'd be a 0 and negative 2. This one right here, factor something out. They share an 8. They also share a variable b. If I factor those out, I got b minus 5 equals 0. Once again, if I put a 0 here, I would get an answer, and this would be a 5. Okay? This one right here, move it. 10x plus 10x. Okay? So I have x squared plus 10x equals 0. You factor out an x, you get x plus 10 equals 0. Your answers are 0 and negative 10. I know I do it fast, but if I go too fast, back it up, watch it a couple times. You guys should get the answers. Okay, now we're talking about factors, methods of them, okay? A lot of you don't really use this one, okay? This was the one where you would split it. Remember, you would reverse factor, so it'd be like x plus y, and then it would be a plus b. That's kind of the reverse of that, which is right here. You guys remember doing that? Quadratic factoring is usually this, where it's a times c over b. Then we have difference of square factoring, where if you can take the square root of this, what do you have? You can take the a and the b, and you do a plus or minus in the beginning. And then the perfect squares factor. If square root of that, you would just take the a plus the b, and then you would square on the outside. So these are different rules I did not make you memorize, but maybe I should have. Let's solve this. All right, so first things first, ladies and gentlemen, this was supposed to be a y here. So if you remember, your x, it's a times c over b. So this would be 24, this is 10. What two numbers multiply together to make 24? When you add them, it's 10. Be 4 and 6, or 6 and 4, it doesn't matter. Be y plus 4 is your answer, and y plus 6 equals 0. Well, how do I know I get them to 0? Y plus 4 equals 0. Subtract 4 from both sides. Your answer is going to be negative 4. And this one would be negative 6. This one here, you got to make sure you move the 9x first. 3x squared minus 9x minus 12. It now equals 0. Do they share anything in common? Ladies and gentlemen, they do. They all have a 3. Factor it out. The 3 no longer matters at this point. Okay? All right, now you set your x up, so it's going to be negative 4 on top, negative 3 on the bottom, and this would be negative 4 and a 1. So negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3, times them together it's negative 4. So your answer is going to be 3 on the outside, x minus 4, x plus 1 equals 0. So what number would make this 0? 4, and this one, negative 1. Okay? So there's your answer right there. All right, here's some other ones, ladies and gentlemen. Go for it. All right, square root. Can you take the square root of this and this? Yeah, you can. It's 7 minus x. The problem is where's the other half? Remember the rule. So my answer here would be 7 and negative 7. Okay? This one right here. Can you take the perfect, is that a perfect square? I forgot, let me do minus 45. Okay, so it would be 25. 25y squared minus 60y plus 36. Square root. It would be 25, not 25, sorry. It would be now 5y, and this is a minus 6. Now, how do I know this? I know it because of the properties I'm using. Now, technically speaking, there's another way of doing it. You could do the AC method, multiply this by this. So it'd be like this. So it'd be 900 up here, and then it would be 60 down here. And what two numbers would it be? be negative 30 and negative 30. Then you could set it up where it'd be x minus 30 divided by 25. Okay, and then you could factor it and simplify. If you did 5, factor 5 out of here, you'd get 6. Factor 5 out of here, you'd get what? 5. And ladies and gentlemen, it's double these. Now the question is how does it equal to 0? Well, you actually sometimes will have to do a little bit of additional troubleshooting. So if I did 5y minus 6 and I put it to 0, you would actually just do the simple math on it. Plus 6, right? And if you do that, you get 5y and 6, divide by 5. Your answer is y 6 over 5. So if you check your answer, so my only point is there's only one single point on this one, and it's 6 over 5. So if I put it in here, 5 times 6 would be 30. Divide 30 by 5, you get 6. 6 minus 6 is what? 0. All right, add 21. Add 21. So it'd be x squared minus 13x plus 36. Do your x, 36 and negative 13. I know this is going to be a double negative. And the answer is 9 and 4. So it's going to be x minus 9, x minus 4. So my solutions would be 9 and 4. All right. So if you guys do have any questions for me, you need to be able to come see me and ask. So my goal is to get you guys good and well enough within this factoring that you guys could factor anything I throw at you. Or you could think about it. All right, now here's where things got a little dicey today. One thing I want to make sure you guys do is please write this following formula down. Sorry, I'm just making sure my camera's still going. Here's your formula. Not H, buddy. All right, f of x. It's going to equal a, and then it is x minus p and x minus q. What do those mean to you? Well, let me explain. What it means to you is as follows, okay? If you guys remember, what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of points. We're going to take 3, as a matter of fact. We're going to break them down into little pieces, and we're going to take those pieces and put them into this formula. Right here is our first point. Okay, this point here would be negative 1, 0. Okay, there's number 1. This point over here, ladies and gentlemen, would be 1, 0. Right? So let me erase this to make it look halfway decent here. There we go. And then this point here, all right, would be 0 over 2 up. So there's our 3 points. So what we're going to do is we're going to label these points out, okay? When we label them out, just the reason, why are we labeling them out? Well, somebody decided that they wanted to be able to look at this graph and say, what is the line of that equation? How can we do that? We're going to show you. First thing you need to find is the a. So if you remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, but what are we really missing in here? We're missing the a value, which is what we're going to try to find. We have to find the a value before we do anything else. All right, so what this means is that the p and the q are the x-intercepts. So here's an x-intercept, and we're going to label this as p. Here's another one. We're going to label this as q. And then we have extra point up here that has no labels. So we're going to label these as x and y. Okay, so now we have our x's, our p, our q, and if you guys don't remember, f of x is actually the same thing as y. So now we have every single point we can fill in. So now we just need to fill it in. Okay, so what f of x is equivalent to y, our y is the number 2, equals a. And then x is 0, and it's going to be minus p, which is a negative 1. And then it's going to be x again, which is 0, minus q, which is 1. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you just simplify across the board. So this is 2 equals a, negative and a negative is a positive, and that would be times negative 1. So a times 1 times negative 1 ends up being 2 equals negative a. Can you leave a variable negative? No, you cannot. So you just do what at this point? You just switch the signs. Okay? You have a equals negative 2. You're fine, you just leave it funny. And what you do now is after you have this a value, you plug it back into the original equation. So it's f of x, and we have a negative 2. We do not know what our x is in our original equation, but we do know what the intersection is. So once again, we bring the p in, but this time it's plus 1, and it's x minus 1 for your q. All right, so that's kind of the setup for these problems. Now, technically speaking, have a good night, ladies. Technically speaking, what you guys would do now is you could leave it like this as an answer, and I'm fine with it. But when you look at this, some of you may not see what this answer is. So you could technically do the box method on here and multiply it out. So if I did that, x and 1, x minus 1, right, I would get x squared, this would be x, and then a negative 1. So these would cancel out, so it'd just be x squared minus 1. So it'd be negative 2 on the outside, x squared minus 1, and if I distributed it, I'd get negative 2x squared plus 2. So if I go into Desmos and I put this equation in, guess what graph I should get? I should get a picture of this, okay? So that's the long story short. You can leave it like this, but if I multiply it out, it would actually come out to this, which is the exact picture you should see. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through these last two. All right, so same setup. F of x equals a, and then this c is going away. It's going to be x minus p and x minus q. All right, first thing we did in class is label everything. Negative 2, 0, is that an x-intercept? Okay, negative 2, 0, the answer is yes, it is. So I'm going to label this my p. Is this an x-intercept? No, this will be my x, this will be my y. Actually, let me write them down here so it makes it better. Okay, that'll be my x and y. And then the last piece here, so if that's my p, x, and y, I am missing my, holy cow, that was an ugly q. Q, all right? So there's my q. Same with this one over here. This is going to be an x-intercept because it's negative 5 over 0 up. P, negative 1, 0 is q. And then this is my x and my y. So I have all my points I need. Now I can simply solve it out. All right, so let's get going here. F of x is y, so it's negative 12 equals, and then it's going to be the a value, which we don't know what it is, x minus p, which would be negative 2, and then it's going to be x again, 4 minus 5. All right, there's my setup on this one. The next one, it's going to be my y value, which is 6 equals a, and then it's x, which is 1 minus p, negative 5, and then it's going to be 1 again for x, minus negative 1 for q, and that's it. Now you do your math, okay? So on here, on this one here, you simplify it out. So it'd be negative 12 equals a times 4 and 2 is 6 times 4 and negative 5 is what? Negative 1. Multiply that together. Negative 12 equals negative 6a. Divide by negative 6. A equals 2. All right, so there's my a on that one. Let's switch the color as we come back to this side. 6 equals a times, and this would turn into a 6. And then this would be a 2, because 1 and 1, negative and negative is positive. Multiply it out. 6 equals 12a. Divide by 12. A equals 1/2. So we're not done yet, but we got both of our a values. Now you need to create your equation. Okay, so remember your equation is a. All right, so I'll write it up here. So it's going to be f of x equals a, and then it's x minus p, which our p value again is what? Negative 2. And then it's also x minus 5, or q. Okay, so now we're not putting in a point value, we're just writing out the equation. You can multiply this out into a trinomial if you want, or you can just leave it like this, and that would be your answer. Okay, next on this one over here, last one, a is 1/2, so it'd be f of x equals 1/2, and then it's x minus p, And our p-value again is a -5, so it turns positive. And then it's x minus 1. Negative and negative will turn this positive. There's our answer. We also worked on a worksheet in class. We'll be doing more factoring as we go along. Hard, long lesson, okay? Doing substitution though, hopefully you guys understand as you move forward, you're gonna have to do a lot of substitution with points, okay? If it's an A or a B or a C, we're gonna be doing that with quadratic formula. You're gonna be an A, B, C, and you gotta remember which ones they are and plug the points in as we go along, okay? So this is another, you guys need to start learning now how to establish what a formula is and to plug the variables in and the numbers in. If you have any questions, please come see me. We'll be doing a lot of work in class, so please don't miss the next couple days before we actually take our test. But as always, if you do miss anything, please come see me. I'm here before, after school, and be more than happy to help you guys, okay? In the meantime, have a great day, and I will talk to you guys soon.